Having a problem on this line.
Yeah, we are. Technology is great as long as it works.
Well, if you can hear me, I can live with it.
All right, Lee, tell us about. I received your email today about El-Chapo and Donald's Are Today's News. What's going on with that?
Okay. Well, first of all, I don't know how in the world anybody can build a blind 5-foot diameter tunnel with tracks in it underneath a prison and nobody notices. This is mind-boggling. This is Mexico. The corruption, the details.
Mm-hmm.
You're dealing with a man who, first of all, is very intelligent, and he's one of the richest men in the world. Excuse me. He's worth billions of dollars. So are these drug cartel kingpins. The book I wrote is actually the one before the one we just published, was the first series of our spinoff called Pirates and Cartels, and it dealt with the Mexican drug cartels encroaching into the United States and about to destabilize the country and take over Mexico, which is pretty much where we are today. And it's fiction, and it was our first book where we were having a little bit of fun with the characters. And the statutory president that we had created in the previous books said, I'm not going to put up with the Mexican drug people crossing the border, raping, pillaging, taking people back to Mexico, and assassination, which is what we're headed for right now.
Mm-hmm.
So he sent the special forces, the Deltas and SEALs, into Mexico to clean out and take out the drug cartel kingpins. And the second was to impress upon the Mexican president, who at that time was back around President Fox's time, the necessity to work with the United States and destroy the drug cartels, because if he wouldn't work with us, we'd simply go down and do it for him. So it's a book based upon this and how he sent special operators, the first three being women, into Mexico to identify and find the location of the kingpins, and then they would go in and take them out. It's a pretty it's a book like something Trump would like. I think some of the other candidates are hinting at, and people relate to it because you're dealing with a president who doesn't waste time. He gets to the heart of the problem and then he solves it wherever it is.
Right.
We had we had about 4 chapters devoted to El-Chapo, which in Spanish his nickname is Shorty in English because he's short. And it's a funny story. I think it's a good story. If people that have read the book like it, they said it's very interesting. And we brought out and exposed quite a bit of the magnitude of the drug cartel problems in Mexico, the size of, and the amount of money that's involved. The book we're writing right now is the sequel to Pirates and Cartels, and it goes on down to what's called the Triple Triangle, or the Tri-Border Area, which is a section where Paraguay, Argentina, and Brazil all touch. It's a little like a peninsula sticking up out of Argentina in between the other two countries. One of the cities there is the third largest trading city in the world. Third largest in the world. And it's mostly illegal. It's drugs, it's weapons, it's anything else you can think of. And it's totally like the old Wild West. This area is not part of any of the countries. It's a criminal empire sitting right there in the middle of the jungle with 3 cities, one in each city, Argentina, Brazil, and Paraguay. And this is a serious problem for us. And there's all kinds of reports out that nobody ever pays any attention to describing the magnitude of the problem down there. And this ties into our drug problem. It ties into the world's drug problem. Osama bin Laden visited the site back in the 90s and made deals with the people like Fars, the insurrectional that are in the various countries. Now it's being taken over by Hezbollah primarily, and they're taking out. The report I have that I'm using in the book is several years old, and it said that $6 billion a year is being sent out of one city to in illegal funds to terrorists.
Unbelievable. $6 billion just in one city.
A year. And that was several years ago.
How would you, if you were in charge of the border services, what would you do?
Pretty much what I wrote in Pirates and Cartels, frankly. He put the special forces teams on the border, and he told them not to intercept the people that were, the mules that are bringing in people that want to get a job or just move here. He was looking for the armed raiders that were coming across the border. What we have to do is turn these people around and send them back. There's no other answer, because once they come into this country, they're here, and you can't. We're obviously demonstrating we can't get rid of them once they're here. And the bad ones we kick out, and they come right back. This man that killed the woman in San Francisco has been deported 5 times, and he's here. Mm-hmm. 5 times. We got to come up with a better plan. We got to say, if we deport you because of criminal activities and you come back, we're going to put a ball and chain on your leg, and we're going to give you a pick, and you're going to spend 12 hours a day digging ditches until we decide what to do with you. And that may take years. And you're going to dig a lot of ditches.
But isn't there... I love the idea about putting special forces on the border, but I understand there's a law in the United States that says the Army cannot do law enforcement work?
Well, it's been modified so many times. In our last book, Revolution 2016, I go into the details of the Posse Comitatus Act and how it has been modified quietly by Congress over the years to the fact that, in fact, the military is providing armed guards during the presidential inauguration. So, yeah, they're here. That was then, and this is now.
So, in your opinion, Lee, why don't they just do it?
Well, we have a president that doesn't want to do anything to upset anybody except the American people. He doesn't seem to care about us, but he's very, very concerned about upsetting some terrorist or some foreign person that is illegally crossing into our country. They're not illegal aliens. They're not illegal immigrants. They're illegal people that came to this country. There's a process to come. There's a process if you want to come to work and not become a citizen. It's called a green card.
Exactly.
And if the people get a green card and they come here and they do it and they do their work, I see Mexicans in my neighborhood. They do good work. They're nice people. I don't have a problem with them. I hope that they all have green cards. But we have to stop the ones. If you let people cross the border, you're going to get some good ones and you're going to get some bad ones. And it's the bad ones that are the ones that we can't keep letting get into this country. Plus, they bring in disease. They don't have the health standards we have.
Lee, stand by, my friend. You and I have to take a commercial break. We'll be right back. Exonation. Lee Boyland is our special guest. www.leeboylandbooks.com. That's www.leeboylandbooks.com. And Lee and I will be back after a few words from our sponsors as the X Zone continues live and around the world on the Starcom Radio Network.
Florida drug dealer made a serious mistake when he dared peddle his poisons on the schoolyard of Robert W. Morgan's preteen daughter. Morgan, a budding film director, tracked him to his hidden Everglades lair where his meth lab mysteriously blew sky high. When Morgan's demands to police to make grammar school playgrounds safer from drugs were ignored, he sought the counsel of CIA operative Frank Sturgis. Again, he was warned to give up what was becoming an obsession. Instead, Robert used his reputation as a filmmaker to infiltrate the mafia by striking stroking their egos and offering to make films for them offshore so they could import them as foreign product without paying taxes. When they agreed to build him a studio in Panama, Robert called the DEA and FBI and offered to work undercover. In time, their combined efforts revealed how the mob was secretly laundering billions of dollars through the Vatican Bank in Rome before returning to the States as foreign investments. Now read Morgan's story, Citizen Spy, Vatican Cover-Up, The Mob, Money Laundering, and Murder, available at Amazon.com, BN.com, and Borders.com.
Wouldn't you love to know the secret to everything? Well then, meet Dr. Kimberly McGeorge and her cutting-edge, breakthrough knowledge that combines science with possibility. Dr. Kimberly brings real-life answers and healing to those open to alternative solutions. She teaches solution-based programs and classes that will change all areas of your life forever. Specializing in conscious creation, intuitive readings, and energy medicine, you can rapidly shift health, relationships, business, and money and abundance challenges quickly. Receive her best-selling book, Secret to Everything, at no cost by going to secrettoeverything.com/X-Zone. That's right, transformation can start now. Just go to secrettoeverything.com/X-Zone and receive Dr. Kimberly's book for free.
Modern Esoteric, Beyond Our Senses by Brad Olson, consummates the lifeology story about where humanity originates. It is the lost continents, the primitive wisdom, the mythos of creation, and the rethinking of ancient history as we are taught in academia. There is much more to the story than what we have been told. As this is the first book in the Esoteric series, Modern Esoteric starts at the beginning of time and accelerates up to this modern age. Future Esoteric is book 2 in the series and takes a forward-looking position ahead of today with an open and honest examination of the ET issue and various unexplained phenomena. To discover the writings of author Brad Olson, visit www.bradolson.com. That's www.bradolson.com.
Little children aren't the only ones afraid of the dark. Millions of soldiers return from war zones with PTSD, anger, frustration, fear, and loneliness, much of which surfaces during the darkness of the night. You have the chance to change the lives of these American heroes. Songs and Stories for Soldiers.us provides free MP3 players for these men and women. With a list of 3 million songs in 16 different styles, 100,000 audiobooks, and 30,000 old-time radio programs, every veteran can find something to soothe and comfort them at no cost. All our players contain an 8-hour audio program designed to help veterans fall asleep. With 1,500 plus vets now participating, it's our goal to deliver 10,000 audio players this year. Go to our website at songsandstoriesforsoldiers.us. Help us help a veteran make it through the night.
Hi, this is Eric Rawls of Cosmoverse.com, and you're listening to Rob McConnell in the X-Zone.
Hi, this is Blade Runner, and you are listening to Canada's #1 paranormal radio show, The X-Zone, with Rob McConnell.
Hi, I'm Laura Sabrin of Cease to Fields Organic Vineyard in Jordan, and you're listening to Canada's #1 paranormal radio show, The X-Zone, with Rob McConnell.
Hi, my name is Lady Ashley, the White Witch of Niagara-on-the-Lake, and you're listening to Canada's #1 paranormal talk radio show, The X-Zone, with Rob McConnell.
Welcome to The X-Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
Welcome back, everyone. This is the X-Zone. I am Rob McConnell. You're listening to us around the world on the Starcom Radio Network. Give us a call at 1-800-610-7035. My email address is xzone@xzoneradiotv.com. On all social media sites, X-Zone Radio TV, and our main website where you can listen to the X-Zone 724-365, www.xzoneradiotv.com. And don't forget, you can also call in and listen to the X-Zone, 213-401-0080. That's 213-401-0080. Lee Boyland is our special guest. We're talking to Lee about a number of things. We talked to Lee briefly about the escape of el-chapo, is his name, or Shorty. And tell me, Lee, what do you think about Donald Trump? Running for president, that is.
Well, he has done what nobody else would do. He has come out and called a spade, as we say, and he's not backing down. He doesn't get intimidated by the news people that attack him because, we have in the American media, the Democrats can do no wrong and the Republicans can do no right. That's sort of the mantra. But Trump doesn't put up with it. He goes right to the point. He doesn't have somebody whispering in his ear. He doesn't have notes. Or doesn't have any type of communication. He stands up and stands on his feet, and he knows what he's talking about. And you're talking about a man who has made himself a multi-billionaire, somewhere between $8 and $9 billion. You don't do this without being intelligent and also being aggressive and being able to deal with people. You can't build an empire like that if you can't manage people. So I think he's striking a nerve in the American people, saying, finally, we have somebody who will call it like it is and isn't going to back down.
Yeah, he certainly seems to have what it takes, in my opinion, that is. When I listen to him talk, I say, well, hey, man, you know what? You're saying what so many people are thinking. And this guy here is taking the brunt of the media because of what he's saying.
Well, he scares the media to death because they can't intimidate him.
That's right. They can't, can they?
And, if nothing else, he'll turn around and buy their station.
And then fire them all.
Yeah, he could do that. I like Ben Carson. He's just opposite of Trump in personality. He's very quiet, but he says very strong things. He sort of reminds me of Ronald Reagan in the fact that he talks softly, but he says what he's going to do, and he's very specific about it, and he doesn't backpedal. There's some other good candidates there, but those two are personality opposites, but they both, I think, are on the same wavelength as far as what they're going to do. They both said, we're going to shut down ISIS, we're going to close the border. They're saying the same thing, but one's saying it very aggressively and the other's saying it very quietly.
Hillary Clinton was caught dead smack in a lie by CNN last week when she said she never received a subpoena to appear at the Benghazi, what was it, the Judiciary Committee on Benghazi? When she said she never received a subpoena, CNN went to the committee and they produced CNN the subpoena that she was issued. What do you think this will do for Hillary?
Her following doesn't. I said that Hillary could go out on Pennsylvania Avenue in front of the White House and shoot somebody, and they would give her a medal. Her followers, the people that follow her. She is the untouchable queen of the far left. I think the American people overall are not going to like what's happened, what she's done, but she has no competition. She has a socialist communist as a competitor in the Democrats. She has maybe a vice president that will run. He's not making any noises. And then you have Jim Webb from Virginia, who might be a realistic Democrat, actually a real person.
Interesting. Last night or early this morning, the Iran nuclear deal was signed. As a man who worked in the nuclear industry, as well as in the defense industry, do you think that this is all it's cracked up to be, or do you believe what President Netanyahu of Israel said, this is the worst deal that has ever been made in history?
I just put a posting on my Facebook page, and it says, Negotiation 101. Excuse me just a minute, my throat's closed.
Sure.
If two parties sit down at the table and make a deal, and both of them leave thinking they weren't happy with the deal, you probably have made a very good deal, because if both parties are unhappy, that means you probably reached something that was pretty good for both sides.
Right.
If you reach a party where one party goes away smiling, the other one doesn't, you figure somebody made a bad deal. And I've seen that happen. And then you get to the point where you make a deal at the table and both parties leave smiling, thinking they've done wonderful things. What that means is one side snookered the other, and that's where we are on this deal. Obama and Kerry have been snookered.
But doesn't Congress have 60 days to go over this entire deal, and don't they have the authority to block it?
There's a lot of argument on that that says they can't. It's very complex. If it's voted down the first time, then Obama vetoes the vote down. Then you go back and you've got to have a majority, 2/3 majority in both houses. And I think Bolton, I didn't hear his comment, but what I was told is he's saying that it really doesn't, it's going to go through no matter what Congress does. And the worst part is the Europeans are going to drop the sanctions. Russia and China will never allow them to be reinstituted if they're dropped. And Iran, at the very last minute, I knew that when the Iranian delegate to the negotiations said, we're not going to negotiate anymore. We've reached the limit of our negotiations. That told me that they've gotten everything they wanted, and now it was time to shut the thing down and sign it. What's coming out is at the very last minute they said, "Oh, by the way, would you lift the sanctions on us getting conventional weapons?" Which was Obama swore would be never part of this deal, but apparently we agreed to it.
Well, Obama also drew two lines in the sand during the Syrian crisis 2 years ago, and Syria crossed those lines, and President Obama did nothing about it.
Well, he uses one of these markers that you write on the board with where you can wipe it off real quick.
Well, that's how it's done.
Yeah, his red lines are only good for the 30 seconds or so after he says it.
Gotcha. How do you think the new Iran deal will work with ISIS? Is this going to be an asset to ISIS, or is it going to be a deterrent for ISIS?
That's a very interesting question. ISIS is the Sunni al-Qaeda operation on steroids. They've basically pushed al-Qaeda off the table, and they've taken over. And they're rubbing against Iran in what they're calling the Levant, which is the territory they're trying to occupy in Iraq and Syria. They're also rubbing against the Taliban in Afghanistan, and there's a fight going on there. But ISIS, I look at ISIS as being like a virulent cancer that throws off cells, and the cells go to other parts of your body and then cause cancers. And when you have something like that, you're pretty much finished. And if we look at ISIS, they've got cells now in Africa, they've got cells in Yemen, they've got cells in Afghanistan. It just goes on and on. They're spreading like a virulent cancer. They're the biggest problem Iran has, probably, because they are Sunni and Iran is Shia. So some point down the line, there will be a conflict.
Now, Israel is dead against this nuclear deal. How do you think this is going to throw out in the Middle East now that, because I see Saudi Arabia getting into it now, and I see, Russia and China knocking on the door of Iran, wanting them to buy their weaponry. It's going to turn out to be, in my opinion, a free-for-all pretty shortly. I
was just thinking about the fact that it would be time to become a nuclear weapon salesperson in the Middle East. Go over there and take orders. Pakistan's is tied. There was all kinds of stories that Saudi Arabia paid for a lot of Pakistan's nuclear weapons development. And it's very possible because that's a hedge. That's building a hedge in case something goes wrong. So right. Saudi Arabia will be able to get nuclear weapons from Pakistan. The French could sell them nuclear weapons. Israel might even decide to sell Saudi Arabia a nuclear weapon to stand off Iran. And I would think the Israelis would be pretty good.
I can't understand why everyone, well, not everyone, but certain leaders seem to be ignoring Israel lately?
This administration has written Israel off. And if you look at, we'll go back to ISIS. There's three ways to describe that. The proper way to describe it now is the IS, like the letter, like is. You know, remember when Clinton says whatever is means is, whatever the definition of is. Well, IS, it stands for Islamic State. ISIS stands for Islamic State of Iraq. And then ISIL stands for the Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant. And the Levant is a geographical area that goes back almost to Muhammad's times, and it includes Israel. It includes Jordan. It includes parts of most of Iraq. It includes some of Turkey. It includes some of Saudi Arabia and some of Egypt, a little bit over in the Sinai. It's a big swath of land, and that is what ISIS says. They say that we are the Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant. And when Obama never uses the term IS for Islamic State, he never uses the term ISIL. He always says, ISIS. He always says ISIL with the L, for the Levant. And in effect, he is saying, I recognize the area known as Israel belongs to the Arabs.
Wow. That's a good swift kick in the butt for Israel.
Yeah. Look at where they are. They've been written off by this country. They have no support, and they will get no support. They're looking at Iran, which for Iran in 10 years is, these people think in terms of 100 years and even 1,000 years in their planning. So they don't mind waiting 10 years to be able to produce nuclear weapons. And the key word here is produce nuclear weapons, not make one or two. They can do that now. Probably already have, I think. But they want to have a production line where they can produce several hundred nuclear weapons. Then they are a real nuclear power. And Israel is sitting there saying, when this happens, we're gone.
Yeah.
They're going to wipe us out. They've said so repeatedly, and they mean what they say. So look at the one possibility. Israel may decide to wait to see who the United States elects in 2016. If they elect a Donald Trump-type person, they're going to feel pretty good about it. On the other hand, Iran is going to sit and wait and look at who we elect in 2016. And if we elect a Donald Trump-type person, they realize they've got to do something before that person takes office because they're not playing with Obama. So if a hawk, what we used to call a hawk, is elected president, Iran will take action against Israel. If somebody like Hillary Clinton gets elected, who's not going to support Israel, Israel is going to know they've got to take action. So, if you look at this, there just isn't any end game that makes me feel good about what's going to happen.
So what would happen, Lee, if Israel does attack Iran? The fact that the United States and the 6 other countries have made this deal with Iran, does this put these 7 countries plus Iran against Israel?
Yeah, isn't it a mess?
Wow.
On the other hand, is Israel going to wait until somebody sets a nuclear device off in Tel Aviv and wipes out most of Israel?
I can't see that happening. I can see Israel taking a preemptive strike.
But the only way they can do it now is with nuclear weapons. Think about it. The bomb we developed to be able to penetrate into Natanz or into Fordo, where the underground centrifuges are, that bomb weighs 30,000 pounds, is 20 feet long, and 3 feet in diameter.
Wow.
There's nothing Israel has to get off the ground with that. The only thing we can deliver it with is a B-1, a B-2, or a B-52. The only planes that can carry it.
Who could Israel make a deal with to supply them with a nuclear weapon that could take on Iran?
Yeah, that's an interesting point. The only stable country that they could think of would probably be Egypt or Saudi Arabia. And Egypt is not as stable as Saudi Arabia. But on the other hand, Saudi Arabia could be overthrown tomorrow by the fundamentalists.
So the Middle East is certainly a ticking time bomb.
Yeah. It is, and now they're getting world-class weapons.
Lee, stand by, my friend. You and I have to take our break for this half hour. X-Zone Nation, Lee Boyland is our special guest, www.leeboylandbooks.com. And we'll be back after this edition of We the People Media with Dan Perkins. Don't go away.
This is Dan Perkins for We the People. Today I want to talk to you about the Constitution, and more specifically, two particular sections of the Constitution that seem to be under tremendous pressure at the moment. One is the freedom of speech, and the other is freedom of religion. Let's deal with the most recent attack on the freedom of religion. You may be aware that the state of Indiana passed legislation mirroring the federal legislation for religious freedom. And we had an affiliate of ABC News that went out looking for organizations and individuals who were against the provisions because of potential discrimination based on sexual orientation. And so she found this particular pizza place, and she went in to interview one of the waitresses and was asked the question, would you cater a gay wedding? Her response was, no. We would not. We would certainly serve gays, lesbians, homosexuals, transsexuals, whatever the flavor. We would serve them in our restaurant. She didn't say flavor. That was just me ad-libbing there a little bit. But anyway, she said that we would not cater a wedding because it is against our belief. We as Christians do not believe that marriage is defined as a relationship between two men or two women. We believe it's a man and a woman. And when she released that story in that interview, the internet went wild, and the social media was populated by the gay and lesbian and transsexual and all of those various groups of people who came after this man. And they threatened his life. They threatened his business. He had to close his business. There was a woman purportedly to be gay who was standing in the middle of the town, felt that they should firebomb the man's restaurant. And so he closed. And so what happened was a very small percentage of the population in America forced a man to give up his business because of his beliefs. The government, I do not believe, has the right to step into your life and tell you what you must believe. See, that's a constitutional right, but it's also a God-given right. If these people don't believe in God, that's fine. But don't tell me what I have to believe. See, there was a recent situation last year when the chief executive officer of Mozilla, the Firefox search engine, was attacked by, again, the liberal left, transsexual, gay, and homosexual communities because he had given, I think, around $9,000 to a California ballot initiative, which was passed, that prohibited gay marriage in the state of California. Now, because he did that, they said to all of their friends in the gay and lesbian community, don't use Mozilla anymore. And so the president of the company had to make a decision, and she decided that the chief financial officer had to go. He had to go because he believed that it was his right under the Constitution of free speech to speak his mind about what his thoughts are about gay marriage. And yet, the homosexual community in the United States has decided that either you believe what I believe or you shut up. You know, the terrorists in Iran say either you believe what I believe or you die. Is it going to be that far-fetched that at some point in the future a person in the United States is going to be brutally murdered because of what they believe, their belief in God, because it doesn't fit the narrative of the gay and homosexual community? What is the value of human life if in the United States, which is supposed to be the land of the free and the home of the brave, if individuals are having their rights taken away, not by the government, but by pressure in social media by other organizations? It's important. We have a constitution. The founding fathers knew what they were doing. We have a right of free speech, and the only way our society will survive for the long term is if we have free speech and the right to practice any religion we want. This is Dan Perkins for We the People.
Hi, this is Ken Elliott. When I'm floating around the universe, I always try to tune in to Rob McConnell.
Hey ho there, Timothy Frog on Sesame Street. When I want to find out what's going on with UFOs or ghosts, I listen to the X Zone with Rob McConnell.
This is Les Corrigan from Target Internet Development. You're listening to Rob McConnell on the X Zone Radio Show.
This is John Hogue, prophecy scholar, and you're listening to Rob McConnell in the X Zone.
Welcome to the X Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
Welcome back, everyone. Just received a text from one of our listeners, Lee. And they were commenting, like I was yesterday, that it seems that ISIS is not in the news these days. And is this, in your opinion, the quiet before the storm?
I think the storm is coming. Our news media seems to only be able to deal with one thing at a time. And right now, it just goes from one thing to another. And the Iranian deal is the big topic today, and then we had El-Chapo, of course, and Trump, which was a sideshow. I think ISIS is coming, and I think ISIS is a real danger to us. And this government just refuses to take it seriously.
Why do you think President Obama just hasn't put the boots on the ground and wiped them off the face of the earth?
He wants them to love us. He wants to apologize. He started out to say that I'm going to overcome all the bad feelings. I'm going to make peace with our enemies. He thinks he's made a deal with Iran that means peace. He's given the store away. We don't even know what's in that package. It's one of those things you have to sign it to find out what you agreed to. Another one of those deals. He doesn't want to harm. He does everything in his power to keep our military from doing anything really constructive to stop ISIS. The restrictions on the pilot are so severe that they come back with the ordnance on the wings of their aircraft because it takes so many layers of approval to get permission to drop a bomb or fire a rocket that when they see the target, and by the time they get permission, it's hours later, the target's gone. We are doing everything we can to destroy our ability to take care of ourselves. He's doing everything he can to ruin the morale of our military.
Well, I was just going to ask you about that, Lee. You're a former lieutenant in the Air Force. When you and your fellow military officers meet for a couple of brew, what's the talk around the table when it comes to what's going on with ISIS?
I'm very active in the Military Officers Association of America, our chapter here in Florida. The talk is that we're refusing to face reality. We're refusing to do what has to be done to counter these people. And we're very concerned about the rules of engagement that our military is being forced to live under. And we're very concerned about the morale because the senior enlisted people, which are the backbone of any military, are not staying. They're leaving. The junior officer corps, the lieutenants and captains, and even in the majors, are leaving. They've had enough of this. They can't take it. We're degrading our military to the point that in another year or so, we're going to run up against China or Russia, and Putin is going to tell us to get out of his way, or he'll put a foot up our rear end, and we're going to have to turn around and leave because we won't be able to stand up to him.
I think that with what happened in Syria, with President Obama drawing that red line in the sand and Syria crossing it twice and President Obama not doing anything, I think that Putin was watching this very carefully, and it seems only after that incident that Russia started raising the bear again.
You're right. You're absolutely right. And look at what China's doing. They decided to take over the whole Yellow Sea. They've decided to take over the islands that belong to other countries. They're telling everybody this is our sea. Nobody's challenging them.
No one. And look at North Korea, for goodness sake.
Yeah, North Korea. I actually think China uses the way we wrote in our first book, and I didn't know that at the time. They just wind him up and see how far he can go before somebody says something, and then they know how far they can go. He's a provocateur puppet for them, and they can claim no responsibility for what he does.
And of course, Russia is taunting the Allies by very close flights, sometimes flying off out of international airspace into sovereign airspace, and just as if to tease, to see exactly how far they can go.
Yeah, and nobody stopped them. They're flying their bombers like they used to in the Cold War. The difference was we were flying our bombers on their border, and we both sides knew that if your guys drop a bomb, we'll drop a bomb right afterwards, and so nobody ever dropped a bomb. But now Putin's flying his airplanes along our coastline, and we aren't doing anything. We aren't doing a thing to counteract it.
Well, don't we still have Strategic Air Command?
I don't think so. I think it's been disbanded. It's something else. I'm not sure, so I'm not going to say.
Because I remember in the 60s, was it the 60s or the late 50s? I guess it was the 60s, 50s, when the Cuban Missile Crisis was happening, and they had air raid siren test, and used to scare the hell out of me as a kid. I remember seeing the news footage about Strategic Air Command, the B-52s, the Pine Tree Line, the radar stations up in northern Canada, and it gave you some assurance that you were protected. But
we were protected then. I knew the colonel that flew a flight out of Puerto Rico, and he was being sent there. They were carrying warshots. They were carrying live thermonuclear warheads in their planes, and their target area was in Russia. But they were detoured over Cuba, and he had to give a report to where the ships were, and could he see any indication that there were things that looked like missiles on the ships. So 3 B-52s flew over them, and then they reported back to McNamara that they saw what they thought that looked like rocket missiles on the ships of the Russians that were headed toward Cuba. He then proceeded to Spain for refueling. After they left Spain, 3 MiGs fighters came up around his aircraft. One flew on each wing, and the third one flew underneath the plane to look at the ordnance that was being carried. And warshots, live nuclear weapons, are white. And we had white bombs hanging on the wings of our B-52s, and they wanted to make sure that that was the case, and they left. And Khrushchev had to find out, were we really flying planes in with thermonuclear weapons, and were we really going to attack? And all indications was Kennedy said yes, and the planes were coming, and he turned the ships around. What would we do today?
I was just going to ask you, if Khrushchev was Putin and Kennedy was Obama.
Oh, God.
Yeah, I think that the missile crisis would have turned into World War III.
Or we would be sitting with Russian intercontinental ballistic missiles sitting on Cuba, and we would not be able to do anything about it.
By the way, what do you think about the United States and Cuba getting buddy again? You know, putting embassies on each soil and opening Cuba up back to the American public?
Well, I hope it works out. Yeah, I really do. I hope it works out. But I haven't seen anything that this administration does that actually worked out the way they claim it's going to work out. And I'm not sure we aren't being massaged and taken advantage of again by another Castro.
It's going to be interesting to see what happens. Mind you, see, as a Canadian, we had nothing against Cuba, so we could go down there, enjoy the beaches. Our flights were allowed to land there. And mind you, I've never gone to Cuba, flown over it, never landed there. And the planes I've been on, needless to say, I've never been hijacked to Cuba. Mind you, I remember getting on a plane in Montreal in a blizzard and coming to Toronto in a blizzard, and I was hoping somebody had hijacked the plane, but nobody did. But, you know, I
had that thought at Buffalo one time in a blizzard.
Oh, my God, Buffalo and its snow, let me tell you. Let me tell you. So, Lee, taking a look at the world today, where, in your opinion, are the places on this planet that we should pay very close attention to?
We've got to pay close attention to what's going on into that whole area where ISIS or ISIL is in Afghanistan. The Taliban's going to come back, or ISIS is going to come back and take over Afghanistan. We've got to worry about the real three places we really have to worry about is China taking over the Pacific, Putin plans to reestablish the Soviet Empire, and Iran, what they're going to do when they start making nuclear weapons. And who are they going to give them to? Are they going to give them to Hezbollah? Are we going to find them going off in our cities? I wrote a book, Rings of Allah, which shows how easy it would be to bring a nuclear device in and plant it in the city and let it sit until the right time to set it off.
How do we know that hasn't happened?
Yeah, it can happen. And now we've got a country that has the ability to do that. And I don't think they have the mental restraints not to do it. I think they're so fanatical. We're dealing with pure fanatics. Somebody like with Hitler's mentality that you cannot apply our rules of logic to. They don't think the way we think.
Well, I've got a very simple solution, and I've said this many times on the air. If you fly, and this is me talking as Canadian, I'm not putting any words in anybody's mouth except my own. If you leave a country where you're not happy and you're looking for a better life, and you come to our country, and after you land here, you figure, I don't like the way they do things here. I want it the way that I had it back home. I have a very simple solution. Where that plane landed, it takes off from, and will bring you back to where you came.
Yes, I like that, yes.
Nobody puts a gun to their head to say, come to Canada or go to the United States, for goodness sake. Our doors are open, and I'm sure I speak for a number of my American friends when I say our doors are open. We will help you to be successful. We will help you to build our country to be the greatest countries it can be. We're very proud Canadians, and we're very proud of our friendship with the United States, Lee. You know that.
Yes.
But so when someone attacks the United States, as a friend, they attack me. And you're welcome as long as you play by the rules of our country, which we voted for. We love our democracy. We love our freedom. We've paid for it. If not us, our ancestors throughout the generations.
And I visit your country often, and when I'm there, I have to obey your laws.
Sure.
Nope, I don't have any right to tell you how to run your country unless I become a citizen and go through the process and become a Canadian citizen. Then I have a right to comment on the government, but I don't as a visitor. And that's true of any country that you go to.
Exactly. The same as when Laura and I go to the United States and we get on a cruise ship and we go to different countries. We look at ourselves as ambassadors from Canada. We always keep our best foot forward. And, when it comes to visiting the United States, well, it's just the neighbor across the street, and we always have a good time there because there are people like you, Lee BOYLAND. And I want to thank you so much for joining us tonight, my friend.
Well, I appreciate you having me. And if you guys want to have if your audience wants to have a good laugh and a good adventure story dealing with El-Chapo, get Pirates and Cartels. I think you'll enjoy it.
All right, Lee. Take care of yourself, my good friend. Look forward to the next time you and I meet here in the X Zone.
And I hope it will be better than today as far as what's going on.
All right, pal. Take care of yourself. Give my very best to Vista.
Thank you very much.
Good night, Lee.
Good night.
Exonation, Lee Boyland has been my guest this hour, www.leeboylandbooks.com. I'll be back on the other side of the news at the top of the hour as we continue here in the X Zone from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. If you'd like to give us a call, worldwide toll-free, 1-800-610-7035. My email address is xzone@xzoneradiotv.com. On all social media sites, X Zone Radio TV, and our main website, where you can listen to the X Zone 724-365, www.xzoneradiotv.com. By the way, hey, if you want to hear what radio should be, what it's meant to be, listen to my friend Ed Till, Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. until 5 p.m., right here on the Starcom Radio Network. My name is Rob McConnell. Don't go away.
Wouldn't you love to know the secret to everything? Well then, meet Dr. Kimberly McGeorge and her cutting-edge breakthrough knowledge that combines science with possibility. Dr. Kimberly brings real-life answers and healing to those open to alternative solutions. She teaches solution-based programs and classes that will change all areas of your life forever. Specializing in conscious creation, intuitive readings, and energy medicine, you can rapidly shift health, relationships, business, and money and abundance challenges quickly. Receive her best-selling book, Secret to Everything, at no cost by going to secrettoeverything.com/X-Zone. That's right, transformation can start now. Just go to secrettoeverything.com/X-Zone and receive Dr. Kimberly's book for free.
If you enjoy reading a good mystery with a touch of the paranormal, then you'll love From Out of the Woodwork by William S. Peckham. Sean Kennedy, a Toronto contractor, buys derelict houses, guts them, and turns them into multi-family dwellings. When Sean buys 29 Livery Lane, a century house in ruins, and starts the renovation, the house fights back. He is visited by ghosts of owners past. His visions are triggered by touching an oak mantle, reading a faded letter, opening an old locket, or opening a brand new casket in the basement. These visions will take you on a trip across southern Ontario from Niagara Falls to Toronto to Kingston. From Out of the Woodwork is now available in paperback and on your favorite electronic reader. To order your copy of From Out of the Woodwork, go to www.williamspeckham.com. That's